everybody, and welcome back to another episode of your favourite series, Kentauri Dreams. I've done a lot since last episode, so in the build time lapse, I'm going to recap and explain what we're doing today. So, what are we doing in today's video? Well, as of course you've seen in the title and thumbnail, we're going to be finally going to Jewel. The planet with the best science rewards that you can really get because it's quite far out. So this Jewel spacecraft is actually fairly complex. And it took me quite a while to build as well. In total, it took me around 44 minutes to build, which was really quite challenging. And of course, sticking all the science experiments onto it and making all of these things was, as I've said, quite tedious. However, in the end, we came out with something really, really nice. I decided to use a technology that I recently unlocked, the Dumbo Open Cycle Nuclear Core nuclear engine. Very complex name for a fairly not complex engine. As it didn't really take me that long to build the engine section. But these solar panels were quite finicky when I was making them. Another thing that was quite finicky was attaching the payload to the fairing, because we needed to make an engine, one of these, I forgot their name, engine plates, and we needed to add a whole system to keep it all in place. But in the end we made the fairing, at which point I added these radiators, and I realised I forgot the lander, which I quickly designed. But back to the mission. Today we will be going to, as you of course saw in the title and thumbnail, we will be going to Vall, which I thought was a good destination for this mission, because we've got about the right technology to do the mission. Pity we can make the engines run not on hydrogen, because I've got a very bad history with hydrogen, because for some reason I always end up running out of coolant for the hydrogen tanks, which gets annoying, and I've never learned how to fix it. Which is annoying, but that isn't really important. As you can see, we have enclosed the spacecraft in a fairing. We're just doing the little bit of auto strutting, and we gave it its name, and I decided to make the launch vehicle. So the launch vehicle we will be using is a new launch vehicle I've thought of, and we have now created a new name for our launch vehicles, Titan. This is the first of my Titan launch vehicles. I named the Titan 1. Fairly simple launcher. But, it did take me a while to make, so, yeah, and just like that, you just got a nice little spin-round view of what the rocket looks like. But, that out of the way, look at that, we are launching the rocket, and I know you can see temperature gauges up above, but I can assure you that there is actually no problem. I don't know why that is. And as you can see, we're taking a very, very steep ascension profile, which I really wish we hadn't. It's just, for some reason, the Mammoth engine didn't want to gimbal downwards. I would press the W key, and it simply just wouldn't respond at all. But, as you can see, we have now reached orbit. And, of course, with reaching orbit, we now need to start making our maneuver to Jewel. I don't know. I think this is actually going to be quite an in-game long mission, and I'm pretty thankful that we've removed TAC life support for that reason. Our transfer to Jewel is, as I guessed, in quite a while, 108 days. So, I'm going to see you once we get there. I interrupt this brief period of time warping and readying for our maneuver off to Jewel as something I should have predicted happened, and I completely forgot about. See, this is the second time I try and make this video, and the first time I sent this craft to Vall. But I never reverted the flight before making this video. So here's quite the twist on the video that I didn't plan at all. I completely didn't expect this to happen. But, well, here we are. So these two ships are going to meet up in Vall orbit. Obviously, this ship's going to arrive far before the other one. But it will be interesting to see two ships come together and make their burns together. These two landers will be flying, getting down to Vall at the same time and at a similar place. However, I somehow managed to install a mod that will allow me to burn together, a mod called Burn Together. And I installed this without knowing this was going to happen. And this sounds so staged, but I am so surprised this happened, even though I really shouldn't be. So, you know what? Let's get back to getting off to Vall. Now with two ships coming together. It was at this point I decided to make the executive decision to deorbit the Jewel exploration spacecraft in favour of my other spacecraft already on a mission to Jewel. Because, as I've previously said, I've got a bad history with hydrogen boil-off in my tanks. So, I decided to go in favour of my other design that uses liquid fuel, which, if you don't know, doesn't boil off. So, I ended up deorbiting it, but this isn't the end for this craft file or its use in this episode, because we're going to be going back to Jewel as well, using this spacecraft, but not landing on Vall. Instead, landing on Bop or Pole, or maybe even both. I don't know. But that's out of the way now, so I'm going to get back to the Jewel mission.
1 hour later.
And here we are, ladies ladies and gentlemen, after probably one of the most complex maneuvers I've ever done in Kerbal Space Program to get to a planet or moon, we're here at Vall. And I've run some experiments, and some of them are in the lab. Well, I think they're in the lab. I don't know. Oh yeah, some data's in the lab. So it's now time to transfer our crew into the lander and actually visit the surface of Vall. And, well, who could have guessed it? We have landed on Vall. I have to say, Vall is my favourite planet for parallax, because it just looks so beautiful. But we just ground tethered our gear, which means we won't slide along, even though we're on this kind of incline. I chose to land specifically on the Midlands and not on these lowlands, even though they're very close to each other, because I think the terrain will be able to get, because I can fly over and get a report from the highlands. Very close to where we are right now. So we're going to turn off SAS to minimize power consumption. And, well, now Jebediah will plant our next interplanetary flag. Val's got fairly high gravity, which made the landing, that little bit more challenging. I mean, obviously it's not something big, but, it's still quite fair gravity. So we'll name the site Midlands Landed and inscribe the plaque with I think after that it's safe to say that we have finished all of our initial surface operations. As you saw, Dusted Kerman did all of our experiments, and then Jebediah got a nice report from over the other biome, just by doing a bit of biome hopping. But it is now time to actually biome hop the entire lander, because I realise now we have an excess of Delta V. So, I'm going to redo the time lapse, and I'm going to get some experiments over in the mountains biome. Well, as I think you could see, we made quite the escape from our broken craft, which has flown off to who knows where. Thankfully not destroying any of our experiments. This is why I'm quite glad we had a 2-stage design so he could jump off. At least it wasn't that much of a fast explosion, and luckily we've got most of our experiments on board, and all of the experiments we had there are now in our experiment storage containers. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, it's not actually that much of a problem. So now to get back onto the back into the mission. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, after, I have to say, again, one of the more complex docking maneuvers I've ever made, we have made it back. And, on a very, very low margin. But, anyways, this doesn't really matter, because it is now time to transfer all of our experiments into the main module, transfer our crew, and then get them back home. We'll be detaching our lander to save weight and save Delta V, because, you know, I'm not going to get much use out of it. But I'm glad this has happened, and I was so thankful when I reached the main vehicle. But see you guys after.
A few moments later.
At the end of everything. Well, here we are. We are finally back home, everybody. But coming back home at a very, very fast rate. Luckily, for this purpose, I included air brakes onto the craft. I just really hope that this doesn't cause problems. But our science labs have completely we've got so much science. 2,936 science just in the lab. But that I wouldn't say is very important, because it is now time for me to acknowledge my buffer stage, just in case I needed it. But I'm also going to be using, just to save me a bit of re-entry heat, I'm going to be using my nuclear engine for a short burn just before reaching Kerbin, which is something we're going to do just now, in fact. Wait, actually, I'm going to engage this before it's a problem and retract our antenna. We will be hitting the atmosphere at an unbelievable speed. So Jebediah, strap in, because you're going to be experiencing quite the G-force on this re-entry. This is probably the fastest re-entry, Jebediah, you will ever do. In fact, before I do this, I'm going to save the game as pre-re-entry, just in case it's as much of a problem as I thought. But you can even see how fast Kerbin is flashing below us. And yeah, instantly our science labs heat up. I'm not sure. Whoa, be careful. Yeah, look at those G-forces. Look at that. Look at those G-forces. Oh my god. You can see the auroras. Oh my god, look at those G's, man. Look at those G's. Jebediah has just pulled probably the most G's he'll ever pull, and my camera shake is going wild. I should have probably included some stability fins, but that isn't really important because we just activated our slow us down please flaps, which I'm glad I put on because that just slowed us down quite a lot. And of course we're passing through the auroras, which is quite nice to see, and slowly floating down to the surface of Kerbin. Yep, I think this has been quite the nice mission, and I really hope you've enjoyed the mission. But I will actually be unlocking some science with you. But I'm going to be shutting up for the next little while, just as we re-enter and get back to the vehicle assembly build and back to the R&D building. And well, here we are, back at the Kerbal Space Center and prepped to unlock some serious technologies. Of course, next episode, we're going to be doing even more fancy, funky things. But before this, we want some good nuclear propulsion. Of course, we're not at a level where we've got antimatter propulsion yet, but this high efficiency nuclear propulsion node is something I definitely want to research. Ion propulsion is also something I really want to research because it will provide me with some really nice stuff to advance with. But we've still got quite a way to go in my tech tree, sheesh. But finally, we can unlock something that I really wanted to unlock. The Specialized Command Module Tethys, which is essentially a dragon capsule. We've even got experimental science, but I'm not going to do that just yet. But in the meantime, I'm also going to be looking into purchasing electronics, because we've got some nice communication science equipment here. And we will also be probably researching, we're probably going to be researching long-term habitation, as next episode we're going to be launching our first station into orbit. Advanced logistics, I think, can wait even a bit of time, and so can colonization, because it's gonna take. I don't even know how MKS works, or stuff like that. Advanced heat management can also wait. We don't need we don't have any engines that are particularly that powerful yet. But we will be researching automation. And I think automation... Oh, no, it doesn't include it. But we're going to be... We're also going to be researching advanced unmanned tech. Because I've got quite a few good plans for next episode. And we will also be researching something I've been waiting to research for quite a while. Advanced heavy aerodynamics, high altitude flight, and hypersonic flight. And we've got enough science, so we may as well also research into advanced actuators. And this, ladies and gentlemen, ends our episode. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you enjoyed it, consider liking and consider subscribing. It would really, really help a lot. So, with all of that out of the way, goodbye.